It is time for our nightly Vancouver Canucks news roundup, because not only did the Vancouver Canucks go out there and actually sign a player, but we have ourselves word as to whom it is the team is going to target next. We're going to dive into it here, so stick around. Let's talk about the guy that the Vancouver Canucks decided to bring back. It is none other than Guillaume Brisebois. Take a look at this tweet earlier this afternoon. GM Ryan Johnson announced that the Vancouver Canucks have agreed to terms with defenseman Guillaume Brisebois on a 1-year, 2-way contract. Now, I'm gonna be real, it is kind of interesting that Brisebois accepted a 2-way deal. The fact is, he'll get paid different amounts of money between the NHL and the AHL because it's a 2-way contract. We are going to assume, though, that his AHL salary is a lot higher than the old $80,000 that some of these entry-level AHL guys end up getting. Brisebois is always going to live down as one of these eternal Canucks, because not only was he from the same draft class as Brock Boeser 11 years ago in 2015, but Brisebois is a guy that then Vancouver Canucks president of hockey ops Trevor Linden said Vancouver would have targeted with their second-round pick had they actually had a second-round pick. Brisebois was highly touted from the get-go. He inevitably became an AHLer in the Utica system before having some games here and there with the Vancouver Canucks throughout the course of the next few years. It's true, Guillaume Brisebois has never been a mainstay Vancouver guy, but when you think about it, this guy is a Canuck for life. He displays good leadership. He's a stabilizing force on the back end of an AHL team that's going to need some support as they transition into a new coaching staff. So, nice to see the Canucks getting some business done. With that said, though, there is more business to get done further, because it turns out, according to Rick Dhaliwal on Donnie and Dolly today, we have ourselves an idea as to whom it is the Vancouver Canucks will be targeting once free agency opens tomorrow. Canucks News Summaries has the scoop. Here's the list of names. Dhaliwal says you can expect the Vancouver Canucks to talk to Connor Clifton. They had interest in him 3 years ago as well. The guy really likes Vancouver, and he would have an interest in coming to the Canucks too. Kevin Stenlund and Erik Haula are guys the Canucks are going to talk to. And Dhaliwal expects Anaheim Ducks forward Jeffrey Viel to hit the market. That guy is looking for 3 times to 4 times more than his last contract. Tough guys around the NHL are asking for a lot of money, and they're using Mark McCarron as a comparison out of Minnesota. And furthermore, Dhaliwal then mentions Ian Cole. Once again, the Canucks are looking for a veteran defenseman to mentor the young defenders. And Dhaliwal also says that he's hearing the Canucks are not showing any interest in Colton Sissons. So let's dive into these names here. Connor Clifton is the first one mentioned. Seems like he would be interested in coming over to Vancouver, and Vancouver would be interested in bringing him in. He's 31, 5'11", a right-handed defenseman, and he has paid his dues. Clifton was a Quinnipiac guy who inevitably went over to Boston. He had spent a bunch of years over there before going over to Buffalo, maxed out at 23 points in 78 games in 22-23. Not bad. And then spent this previous season with the Pittsburgh Penguins scoring 6 points in 50 games played. Not going to imagine that Clifton gets a significant amount of money. You take a look at the dollar amount he was getting earlier, and he was making $3.3 million a year. That is not really that big of a deal, and considering he is 31, I doubt that the Canucks go long-term with Connor Clifton if they decide to bring him in. The guy is from Long Branch, New Jersey, so it's kind of interesting, man. He's an American dude that apparently would like to come to Vancouver. That's pretty rare nowadays, isn't it? Kevin Stenlund out of the Utah Mammoth is a big boy, 6'4", 214, a right-handed forward, 29 years old, and a former second-round pick by the Columbus Blue Jackets in 2015. Stenlund spent some time in that organization before going over to Winnipeg, Florida, Utah, and then Utah, getting a career high of 28 points in 82 games last season with the Utah Hockey Club. This season with the Mammoth, he had 18 points in 80 games played, 4 goals, 14 assists. A guy that can pretty much fill out spots in the lineup. Obviously, we're not expecting full-time Vancouver Canucks spots to be taken by, let's say, Karamaki for 82 games on end. I doubt Braden Coots is an 82-game NHL player this upcoming year. You still need to have some players to fill in spots, and Stenlund is good enough where you can rely on him to play the games. Maybe not good enough that you can say, oh, he's a game breaker, he's going to win the Canucks a few games single-handedly, but he's a fine player to have there, and plus he's Swedish. So maybe if that helps out Elias Pettersson or something, that's actually a valuable little trait. Erik Haula is another guy that Vancouver seems to potentially be interested in. You talk about veteran leadership, this guy's 35 years old. He's got a lot of it. He was drafted in 2009 in the 7th round. All Haula has known has been adversity. Throughout the course of his development, going into the USHS High School Prep League, going into the NCAA, inevitably becoming a Minnesota Wild, and then jumping around from ship to ship to ship, winning himself. Oh man, I was going to say he won a Stanley Cup. No, he didn't. He was a part of a Stanley Cup finalist team in Vegas in 2018. He had 55 points then. But no, they lost in the finals to Ovechkin, unfortunately. Haula went from Vegas to Carolina to Florida to Nashville to Boston to New Jersey to Nashville. This guy's been all around the block with some winning teams, with some championship caliber players, getting a decent amount of points in the process. He had 38 points in 81 games last year. I don't know about you, but this is a guy that I think if he's in the middle of the top 6 of Vancouver, he probably does fill out his production a bit more. Maybe he gets some more points and then the Canucks flip him at the deadline or something. That's actually a pretty reasonable idea. Accruing value from nothing and allowing your team to remain competitive in the process. I like the idea of Haula coming over to Vancouver. Obviously, he's old, so it's not like he's coming over for a long time, but as somewhat of a veteran piece that you can bring in that can also have trade value later on, I think there's so much to like out of Erik Haula. I mean, this guy gets traded at trade deadlines all the time, it seems. Okay, maybe he only got traded once, but then again, he's a guy that I think a lot of playoff teams would covet as a potential option. Next up is Jeffrey Viel, essentially the guy that A.J. Greer replaced in the Anaheim Ducks system. Viel is 29, 6'1", 214, a left-handed guy. He is an agitator, an energy forward, a leader, a guy who had spent so much time in the American Hockey League. Ryan Johnson definitely knows and is aware of the profile Viel brings. He was a pretty good AHL scorer the past few years before finally graduating to a full-time NHL role. I say full-time, he had 45 games played, split between the Bruins and the Ducks, but he had 10 points in 35 Ducks games, so Viel was actually pretty useful. He also had 4 points in 12 playoff games in the opening 2 rounds against Edmonton and Vegas, so there is a proven track record here for a guy that can step up when the moment requires, and for a player that has worked his way into NHL stardom after years and years of AHL development, this seems to be the kind of story the Vancouver Canucks would be interested in. So Viel coming over to Vancouver, I actually like it a lot too. You can fill out the lineup, you can get some leadership, and Ryan Johnson seems to be familiar with all things AHL hockey, so there's no doubt if he's interested in Viel, it's probably for a good reason. And finally, as was mentioned on yesterday's Donnie and Dolly as well, the Canucks are interested on Ian Cole for the veteran mentorship side of things this year. Ian Cole is a 37-year-old left-handed defenseman. Obviously, we know him. He played in Vancouver in 23-24, 11.78 games. This season, he had 23 points in 82 games, which was absolutely unexpected, but still great. I picked up Ian Cole in fantasy throughout the year, just on and off, because he was a shot-blocking monster that also produced some points. His one season in Vancouver was really solid, admittedly, even though the point production doesn't say it. Cole, Zadorov, Quinn Hughes, Philip Hronek, Carson Soucy, Tyler Myers, that was a stellar decor, and Ian Cole was a really calming presence in that locker room that did mediate things between Pettersson, Miller, and that seemed to have had an overall positive impact. So the Canucks being interested in getting that mentorship again in Ian Cole, that's a totally understandable thing. He is a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. He brings experience, he brings taste, and if he's interested in coming back to Vancouver, I actually think that would be pretty fine. They don't even need to trade him. Just bring him back so you could have that mentorship and allow these younger guys to get a winning person's perspective in the locker room. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the Canucks signing Guillaume Brisebois and these names being the ones that Vancouver seems to have shown interest in heading into July 1st and free agency tomorrow? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. And bye.